Hey everyone, it's Steve Ouimette. If you're looking to improve your vibrato, this is the video for you. Today I'm going to go over 5 tips to make your vibrato better. So if you're ready, let's go get it. So a vibrato is really your signature. It's your fingerprint. Everybody's vibrato is going to be different, and that's a good thing. Everybody is going to have a sound that's particular to them, be it a blues vibrato or a rock vibrato or metal vibrato. It doesn't matter. Everybody is going to have their own sound, and that comes from the fact that we're all built differently at the factory. We have different hands. We play different guitars. We have different music that we're playing, so it's always going to vary. The vibrato came from mimicking the voice. We were trying to sweeten notes. We were trying to make them sing, to cry, to do different types of expression than just sitting down with a note and going. I mean, that's kind of boring. Compare that to or any of those. There's so many different types of vibrato. It was meant originally to sweeten the note. Violinists have been doing it for centuries, stringed instruments, to make it sing. Blues was the originator of really taking this to the guitar and making it a vocal sound. If you listen to a guy like B.B. King, you're going to immediately understand what I'm talking about. Tip number 1, study the masters. And when I'm talking about masters, I'm talking about Django Reinhardt, B.B. King, Eric Clapton, Billy Gibbons, let's see, Brian May, Jimi Hendrix, Van Halen, John Sykes, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Zakk Wylde, Jack White. All of them have instantly identifiable voices in their vibratos. And I'm sure I've left out so many great players, but I'm just trying to get the point across here that everybody's personality comes across. I remember the first time I heard Zakk Wylde's vibrato, it was just like, whoa, here's this super wide and aggressive vibrato. And to this day, you just can't miss him. B.B. King, same way. He has that really fast, sometimes he'll have a very fast kind of vibrato to really punctuate a note. And it sounds like B.B. King. You get into Van Halen, he had that kind of sassy vibrato. There was something about it. It was powerful, it was fun, it was totally badass, but it sounded like big hands shaking a note. And I thought that was fantastic. Slow hand, Eric Clapton. Here's a perfect example of a guy that, I mean, he wrote the book on vibrato. You've got that push vibrato. He did that. I could go on and on. But what I'm saying about tip number 1 is really study the masters. Listen to these great records from Django Reinhardt, from anything from B.B. King to anything that you like. And hear what they're doing. You can learn by mimicking them if you're just getting started. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's how I learned how to vibrato myself. But whatever you can do, I think there have been so many fantastic examples in history that there's no reason why you can't find something that either is interesting to you or inspiring. So there's tip number 1. Okay, tip number 2. I say it's all in the wrist. And what I mean by that is I had a great guitar teacher named Jim Bedford, and he taught me with vibrato that really what you're doing is you're twisting your wrist. So here are a few things that you can do to get into this kind of vibrato. It has a lot of control. First thing is that your third finger is probably going to be your strongest vibrato finger. And that's because you can have support. Now, your fourth finger isn't going to have quite as much support, even if you have 3 fingers behind it. But let's say we go to the 12th fret of the 3rd string, and you've got your third finger on the 12th fret. If you have your second finger right behind it, and your first finger sort of slightly muting the string, the 4th string, and you're just twisting your hand, can go up and you can go down. It doesn't matter. Obviously, if you're on the first string, you can't really do it. It's going to fall right off the fingerboard. So sort of a rule of thumb is that you're going to go up on the first, second, and third strings, and then down on the other three. You don't have to, but it's easier to do it that way. The third string is kind of the middle ground. You can either go up or down. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to use that hand, those fingers, for support. Now you can do the same thing with your second finger, but you're going to have a little bit less support. And the first one is easier to pull down than push up. It's just kind of physical dynamics of the way that your hand works. So wherever you find yourself, you can vibrato with any single finger. And they'll all be slightly different. You can work to get them to be more uniform, but I don't know if that's necessary. I think that's all part of your personal style. So there you go. That is using your wrist. Tip number 3, scale length and string gauge. So obviously if you've got, here's a Les Paul, this is 24 3/4 inch scale. So it is about 3/4, well, it's exactly 3/4 of an inch shorter than a typical Fender scale, like a 25.5 scale. And Paul Reed Smith is sort of in the middle, but the two main scales that we know of are 24 3/4, 25.5. So I'm tuned down a half step. So, and I'm using 10s. So it's very easy to bend and to vibrato. But if you're working with a Strat, it's going to give you more resistance. You'll just find that there's more resistance on a Strat because it's tighter. Unless, of course, you're using a lower gauge of string. No reason why you can't do that too. But I find that if you're new to this, that lighter strings are going to make it easier for you to learn how to vibrato. And that's not to say that you need to graduate up either. There are amazing players that use super light gauge strings. Yngwie, 8s. Paul Gilbert, 8s. Billy Gibbons, 8s. Richie Blackmore was using 8s, sometimes even lighter, if I remember correctly. Brian May, light strings, 8s. Then you've got the other side of the spectrum. Stevie Ray Vaughan, I think he was using up to 13 gauge strings at one point. Really heavy, and you can hear it in the way that he plays. It's super aggressive, and you can feel that he's just pulling. I mean, he is pulling on those strings, and it really makes a difference in the sound. Again, immediately recognizable. But so if you're just starting out, a lighter gauge string is going to make it easier for you to vibrato. And even though we already talked about the wrist, that doesn't mean you can't use other techniques. There's sort of the classical guitar style, which is a back and forth vibrato. You're placing your finger and you're moving back and forth. It's very subtle. But it isn't really, it's not a drunken vibrato. It's just a way to sweeten the note. And I'll use that sometimes if I just want a note to last a little longer, or if I'm just trying to put just a little shimmer on the note. You don't need to go crazy, You can, but you don't have to. So that's with your finger. There's also literally a finger vibrato. It's not easy for me to do, but you're basically, you're kind of scratching. And it tends to have more of the bee sting quality to it. It's maybe just it's because of the way that you're not really using so much of the larger muscles. And I don't really like it too much, but some people love it, and I know that there are players that use it I just haven't been using it much in my life. It's just natural for me to go with what I was taught. But there is another style. I think those are sort of the main versions of what are sort of typically used. So there's an example for you of how you can use different fingers for it. Context. Context is really important. What style of music are you playing? If you're playing rock, you may want to adopt a more aggressive vibrato. If you're playing blues, maybe you want more of that B.B. King type of vibrato. If you're doing indie music or anything else, of course, sky's the limit. I've always loved Jack White's vibrato. It's kind of nervous. He really shakes the note. Now, I'm not saying I'm playing it like Jack. I'm just being... I'm being more aggressive and faster. And it depends on what the context is. What are you trying to say? Are you trying, if you're doing the Zakk Wylde thing, I mean, he's this big Odin Force blend warrior, and God love him for it. Van Halen, he was doing it in that particular context that worked for Van Halen. So tip number 5, different fingers, different sounds. So if I'm using my first finger, my second finger, third, or fourth. Now, all of those are pretty even because I've been doing this for a long time, and I've made it so that I can make it uniform. However, each finger is going to have a different strength to it. I find that the first finger is great for doing that flutter style. The third finger is my favorite to vibrato with because you have that strength of your hand. And there's the other thing. When you're bending, you can bend up into a vibrato. And that makes a great way for the note to sing. Now, I don't have the amp cranked all the way, but you can hear how it works. Here's a bonus tip for you. Slow down. And what I mean by slowing down is take a look at what your hand is doing when you, like, just imagine you've slowed the tape down and you've got... You can see what's going on here. The hand is... I'm pulling and twisting. And you can just use that from the slowest speed to the fastest. So you can get a lot of variety when you're slowing it down just to see what your hand is doing. So try slowing it down and see what kinds of things are happening with your hand. When you slow down, you'll get stronger, you'll see exactly what's happening, and you'll be able to identify things that maybe need to be worked on, or, hey, what's that's going on? Maybe I want to correct that, or maybe that's exactly what I want to do, but I just want to do it faster. It's a really good way to find out where your signature is. I know I'm not playing a lot today, but I think that all of these principles, 1, study the masters. 2, it's in your wrist. 3, what's the string gauge and scale length you're playing? 4, what's the context you're playing in? 5, different fingers are going to have different sounds. And 6, of course, the bonus tip, slow down. If you put all those things together and you focus, concentrate, and practice them, you will definitely up your vibrato game. Okay, that's pretty much it. Obviously, there's a world of information that we could go into, but I wanted to keep this one short. So I will be back with more tips, more lessons, more deep dives, more product spotlights. Stay tuned. Subscribe if you like this, and I'll see you soon. Have a great week.